today's video, we're going to talk about incursions and, of course, the update to the game world. And I'll give you my opinion on this. Now, there are a couple text-based versions of this on Reddit. I'll link one in the description. The one I'm currently looking at for a majority of this comes from user City Fox, and I'll have the link in the description if you want to check it out. And basically, it goes through and it says that the incursions were already hard and they made it a lot harder. You shouldn't expect to be able to drop them in one run. And I think that that is excellent. You shouldn't necessarily be able to one-shot them. Hopefully they're a little bit harder and much more challenging than challenge missions were on the original Onset. The idea with this is that the progression is bottlenecked at either really how good you are, the type of gear that you have, etc. And I think that that is the way it should be, because it should reward players who, one, play more or have a little bit more team mechanics based, something like that. I know it's going to piss a couple people off, sort of an elitist mentality, but I honestly think that that is how the hardest content in the game should operate. It should reward the people who play the most, put the most time in, just like anything else that you would do. The longer you train at something, the better you become, something like that. That may ruffle a couple feathers here and there from maybe the guys who only get the opportunity to play on the weekend, but hey, just my opinion on that one. Take it or leave it. I know you all have yours. The idea here, again, is that you're playing against the LMB, the Last Man Battalion faction. Spoiler alert, Charles Bliss is actually dead from that helicopter crash that you took him out in the General Assembly mission. So expect to have some new LMB leader. They're in a power plant. Whatever. I mean, the lore in this game, while it is really good and interesting, it hasn't necessarily grabbed me as much as I'd like it to. And I don't think it's necessarily grabbed a lot of people because I just don't see that many conversations on it. I see a couple of people that want to start conversations on it, but then it just gets buried by what's your DPS. So that's great. There's going to be 4 different gear sets, and these gear sets are going to be very powerful, but they're going to have powerful talents, and they're not necessarily going to be more powerful than crafted gear. You have to take some sacrifices with maybe some stats to take the talents, and so there's each one. There's one for the security wing, there's one obviously for the tech wing, and then there's one for the medical wing, and then there's a 4th one which is based on the Dark Zone. And I find that the Dark Zone one is probably going to be very popular for the solo artists out there. Myself, I will probably be going into maybe the tech electronic one. I'm not 100% sure. I may go into the STAM one, the tank one, or the DPS one. Obviously, I'd like to get all of them. I think that the electronic one is going to be pretty cool, but the thing that already turned me off from the electronic one is that they're calling it like something to do with turrets. And I fucking hate turrets in this game, so it's just full disclosure right there. If it was like a medical build one or maybe something like that, I'd be all over it. We'll see. We'll see. It's hard to say. We're still looking at really 12 days away from this before I can make any good complaints or give any kind of criticism, and I don't even want to start the criticism train before I play something. Going through it, there's going to be all sorts of new stuff in the game, but the coolest thing, in my opinion, is that once you get to level 30, they're dropping your level, and they're essentially going into gear score. Think Destiny's light system. So once you get up to the Destiny cap at, like, I think it's like level 40 now or whatever it is, and you move right into light. So your level doesn't matter anymore. It's your gear score. And I think that is a great way to do it. It means that you're not necessarily grinding for level for level for level. You may do this on expansions. What you're trying to do is get your gear score as high as possible. And there most likely is a cap. Whatever that cap is, I don't know. But I'm sure we'll find out here in the future. Trading is going to be coming in on April 12th. The way trading works is you can only do it in checkpoints. And then they warned that if you're in a checkpoint with like randoms or something like that that you're not familiar with in your group, they can pick those items up. So it's like a free-form system. So be very careful when you do that. That is a PSA that they said, and I'm sure there's going to be some type of forum post where some dude's like, this dude stole my high end, I didn't bother reading how trading worked, or something like that. And yes, this is the fault of Massive and Ubisoft. In a way, it's a design flaw, but they're warning you ahead of time, and I'm warning you as well, so keep that in mind. I want to protect you guys. If there are some, let's just be honest, there's some fucktards out there in the community that will ruin your day. I mean, the rogue system in the entire concept is designed to ruin your day in some cases. Not really, but it sort of is. And this is sort of an extension of that, but in a very, very malicious way. So keep that in mind. Be very careful how you go through it. Then they start talking about assignments, which are weekly and daily objectives, and they're going to reward you with Phoenix credits, division techs, stuff like that. And it's going to be like kill X number of enemies or do this, whatever it is. And they're going to be on your map. Some are going to be in the Dark Zone, some are going to be in the PvE world. And I think that is something that a lot of people have been requesting, is more PvE specific content outside of the end game, which is the Dark Zone. That is awesome. Going into this, there's now supply drops in the Dark Zone, which show up every hour, and they're going to be guarded by hard mode enemies, and they're going to have some awesome gear in there for you. So expect that these little hard drops, or whatever they are, these little loot missions, these supply drops to come in to really cause player conflict. Only one group can loot these, so you're going to have to assume that if you see another group clearing this, that they are hostile. And I want to make that very clear, that whatever group that I play with, I will probably shoot on sight anyone coming close to that, because I want that supply drop, and I think that you probably do too. I think it's a great way to make player interaction, especially going rogue, mean more. Now, the way these supply drops work is that you run the risk of going rogue right away, so you don't have to extract them. Once you pull those items, they're already in your inventory. They're not contaminated. And I guess that makes sense in the game's lore too, because they're technically dropping in from whoever, the JTF or Sarah, someone's coming in from a helicopter dropping in, so I guess it's not contaminated yet. And I guess that works. It makes sense lore-wise. I like the concept, driving players against each other, more so than just going rogue to go rogue, or going rogue to steal items. Now you go rogue so that you can get those much needed supplies. Very cool concept, I like it. The final piece of the stuff here is the incursion stuff. And they sort of talk about how the incursions are going to work, that there's going to be, in the incursion, you're going to have set objectives. Some of them are going to be like eliminate X number of waves, or really survive waves. Another piece of it is going to be fighting vehicles. And if you remember the General Assembly mission, that mission was revolved around shooting at a helicopter, but there's a piece of that mission that has some mechanics to it that I think the developers intended, but players really didn't utilize, and that was using the turrets on that mission, at least in that final courtyard, to help you DPS the chopper. So expect something like that. Maybe there's some type of turret emplacement that you have to get into, and it's like an anti-vehicle launcher of some type. I don't know what it could be. Maybe you pick up a rocket launcher, and you have to pick it up, and it only drops off certain enemies that you have to kill. The mechanics speculation really at this point is endless, and I'm not sure where I want to put my potato mental capacity at. But I do say I think that it is awesome that they specifically said that these incursions are going to be difficult. They're going to challenge you. They're going to take your team mechanics and they're going to flip them in a way. The standard stuff should work. CC should work. You should have a dedicated healer. You should have dedicated CCs. And you really should have dedicated DPS. My concept group in my mind is probably going to be something like this. I'm going to take 2 DPSs. Guys are going to run pulse scan, and then heals. Obviously, I'm going to have 1 dedicated CC'er, which is a guy who's going to run most likely defibrillator heals, because if everyone dies in an incursion, you have to restart. So think the original Destiny Nightfalls, where if everyone died, you restarted the whole thing. So think that. And defibrillator is going to be very useful. So maybe 1 or even 2 guys running that. And obviously the guy with the support build should either be running pulse. I think your tech support, your electronic guy, should be running pulse so that you do the most DPS. And your lower end guys that are just like, say, full DPS should be running flashbang, because the flashbang base doesn't really scale that well with electronics. So keep that in mind. And your final player, maybe like support station, so that your skill power recovery. And someone should be running smart cover, because smart cover is fucking bae. It is so good. I've been using it in PvP recently. I didn't record it last night after the stream, but myself and my buddy Yoke got into a 2v4 with some other like decently geared players. We weren't necessarily picking on lobies or anything like that. And we ended up winning a 2v4. Very satisfying, good gunfights. And a lot of it, I think, came down to our ability to like heal each other. And then, of course, utilize smart cover. And smart cover is nasty. The one thing that they didn't mention in this patch, and that is really, really frustrating to me, is what they're doing about the overabundance of script kiddies in the DZ. This doesn't affect consoles, obviously, but it does affect the PC. And it is so blatantly obvious sometimes when people are cheating. And sometimes it isn't. But it is very blatantly obvious. Yesterday when I was playing, after I got off stream, I had a guy with an M60, with an M60's fire rate up to 30,000 or something ridiculous, spamming explosive rounds, and there was nothing I could do. And he was even saying in proximity chat, like when me and my buddy actually killed them, was a group of 6 of them doing it. Like, how do they wipe us? Because we ended up actually wiping them once. Anyway, it's a little rant right here. And that right there was so satisfying, but so aggravating at the same time. Massive really needs to introduce some type of anti-cheat or take off player side memory storage, because that's ridiculous. Because you can just manipulate files, and that's what we're seeing happen. So they didn't really talk about that too much. There is stuff going around about how their player reporting works, and player reporting is done via witch hunt now, which is a terrible way to do it. Terrible way to do it, because everyone's going to report everybody. But yeah, that has been your April 12th update. Expect that division patch, really the first free update, which is Incursions, to come out April 12th. Should be a lot of fun. I am stoked. I hope to see you guys on the live streams, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Running in circles, never leave me alone. Say I don't answer the messages or pick up my phone. Say we all need some time just to settle down. Won't you come around, cause I never can leave it alone. Tell me your stories, but don't leave out the lies, cause I know I got some problems and I'm open to mine. So we all need some time just to settle down. Won't you come around, cause I never can leave it alone. Talking about somebody rolling, boulevard dining, making it count for efforts I can't explain. Balling and feeling we drowning, never been humbled by playing the fighter. Never been broken, never been